Hey there, good people. My name is Dasha Kelly Hamilton. Of course, you knew that. That's why you showed up. Or maybe I just popped into your thread. I'll take all of that. Welcome to my brand new day reading. And it feels like a brand new day, especially in a season when every day has been Tuesday. And I'm excited that you're going to settle in and let me share some of my new work, some of my new words, and definitely hear some things from you. So before we get too deep into it, I wanted to share a few videos that feature my work, that show some of the projects I've had a chance to work on through this summer, and gives a little chance for the folks that are creeping in to creep on in. So early birds get the lovely digital worms. So I'm excited to share these new first few pieces with you.
I see you, trying to snip yourself free from the clash of fabric patterns. Outsize the outline of your fierce and stunning soul. Coast, be not ocean. Edge, be not your end. I smell the salt water in your conversation. A slow leak of truth from the corners of your grin. I see you, fumbling to wrap yourself in the wind. But I know a costume when I see one. You carve your journey through fire, blaze ash compacting in your chest. Footsteps forged into scorched earth like rising breaths of sage. Glancing backwards will always be an inclination. Forward is your instinct. I see you, hobbling together a truth of your own. Reconsidering the broken pieces, polishing the gemstones in your scars. You are incomplete, and you are the universe. You are an ever-evolution. Ever-evolution. You are.
It's a tale we know too well. She thinks she's found the one. He promises to be her better half, then beats her half to death. You see, a prince isn't so charming when he's harming with his words, or gripping with his hands, or calling all the shots, shooting holes in all her plans. Each day is roulette on her lips. Kiss or fist? Wait to see which one will hit, yet there she sits. She may not have the words, so listen to her eyes, because there a story lies of a man who was dishonest, who broke every single promise, and sometimes arms and eye sockets. But you see, she is strong. Her soul is mighty, and yes, she is worthy, so for her, we are fighting. Maybe she can't see it. Maybe she can't be it, the one to share her story, to stop saying sorry. But we will. Until she can speak without her voice shaking, we will shout her story. Until there's no mistaking her strength, we will lift her up. Until she no longer hides her face, we will give her time, be her safe place. We'll keep watch. We'll stand on guard. We'll help her rebuild her heart. And we will not rest until she can. Bam, pow, swoosh. Listen. We've been taught to train our ears for the sounds of saving graces. Everyday neighbors who will race into our wild blazes and dangers every day. Bam! Bank robbers and warlords, jewel thieves and wild beasts, sea monsters, aliens, rebel soldier regimes, mad scientists and robots, even a virus running rampant with no sight of a ready vaccine. We've grown up listening for the sounds of salvation, and pow! Heroes always surprise the scene. They arrive with magic, with might, moving at the speed of justice, powered by muscles and motor memory of their pledges to care, their passion to serve and show up for you. Everyday neighbors turned heroes for me, standing tall, flying high, stepping into their own bravery and danger for all of us. Every day. For the longest, we've been told to search the skies for our heroes, to tilt our heads backwards and wait for meteors of fire to hurtle through the clouds, coming in hot, fast as lightning and strong as steel, brandishing powers beyond our imagination. Swoosh! Our heroes arrived in the nick of time, as usual, to grab the tails of runaway trains, wrestle with dragons, wayward planets, and raging hurricanes, deliver our boxes, our dinners, our groceries, our peace, drive our buses, bathe our elders, clean our buildings, our cities and streets. They check in on the lonely, replenish the hope and supplies to folks afraid of what will happen after this day, and this day, and this day. Every day has been rich with everyday neighbors, saving lives without hesitation. Shh. They fly above us when the world is still sleeping, moving mountains and bodies and boxes and our hope for a safer morning. Every day, the heroes are here. Everyday neighbors saving the day. Every day.
A little busy, a little busy, a little busy. I am incredibly proud of those pieces and most excited how I just get to show up and share my words. And you have incredible videographers and folks who had the idea to even invite me in the first place. And I have definitely appreciated all the different places and different ways that my word and my work have been shared with the city, and more importantly, incorporated in so many important projects. So the last one was with the Milwaukee Ballet Company. They wanted to do a video that celebrated, as you saw, the everyday heroes, and I've had a relationship with the ballet for many, many, many years. So I always welcome a call from them because they have really great ideas, and especially when it's an opportunity to remind ourselves of the beauty and the humanity that we in this situation, these days of transformation that we're all in. So I was excited to be a part of that project, and it turned out beautifully. The dancers were incredible. I got to be around ballerinas, watching little girls on the street. Definitely they weren't stopping for me, but the two got it all together. The other video was with Sojourner Peace Center. This is Domestic Abuse Awareness Month, incidentally. So we want to make sure that we are remembering across the board where we have relationships and too close for comfort situations, conflict resolution skills that can definitely be sharpened, and just generally folks that need to be healed. So to be a part of a campaign that reminds us all to stop and remember that every household isn't yours, and if yours is a household that is being forgotten, there are definitely resources for you to get what you need. And we need to continue having this conversation. And the first one that I shared was through Imagine NKE. There is a piece that they wanted to put out to celebrate all of the creatives. In Milwaukee, for all of the things that we're still working on, my goodness, we have a phenomenal creative sector. And that's not just, folks who are artists and make things and perform places, but there are organizations that are supportive of artists as entrepreneurs. There are artist entrepreneurs who are engaged in civic planning. There are civic organizations who engage artists for social justice. There are social justice warriors. You get how this connects all together. And I love to be in a position to remind people that, yes, there's a track of being an artist, a lot of different ways to do that. And then there's the gem, the fuel, the power of being creative. Newsflash, that's everybody. It's the way brains work. It's the way brains work. Oftentimes people will think, oh, I'm not creative. Well, what they mean is they can't draw, they can't sing, they can't dance, which you probably can, enough to enjoy it, maybe not to go on the road. But being creative, every brain makes connections. Your brain is doing it every day, all day long. So I wanted to celebrate the creative force, which is what Imagine MKE is about, and celebrating artists in particular, to have the poem that I read at my laureate inauguration to be selected to be contacted to have that voiced over that piece. Again, is another incredible project. I'm glad I was able to have my voice and lend my voice to that. So what I wanted to do is just give an idea of, share some of these really polished, produced pieces that are coming through. And then I wanted to just share with you, me, my face, and my voice, a couple of pieces that I've had a chance to work on over the course of the summer. And all of us were figuring it out. And I know personally had a lot to figure out just from, whoa, what happens now that gathering doesn't happen, that people won't, what do we do? And the universe has a way of pulling things together. So certainly keeping everybody keeping everybody at the forefront of our minds who are still figuring out harder things, food, places to stay, how to take care of their kid. I am fortunate and blessed that I don't have to worry about being outside, that no one's going to let me starve. And granted, what I thought I was going to be doing for the next year, the universe, again, had different plans. And still with that, just being grounded in finding a place to be quiet. I know I had to tell my girlfriend the other day, I'm sorry it took a pandemic to make me go sit down someplace. But that is definitely what has happened. And I've spent the summer in the backyard working on my inners and writing a lot. So one of the things that I would like to share is a piece that I wrote for the library. Now, the library is in Milwaukee. The library is the home for the Poet Laureate program. And I'll talk a little bit about what a Poet Laureate is and what I've been doing. But in other communities, the Poet Laureate program is managed by the city. It's managed by a foundation, managed by different entities. And so here in the city of Milwaukee, our Poet Laureate program is managed by our Milwaukee Public Library. So they have a gala that they do each year, and the request was, could you write something for the library? As a card-carrying library kid my whole life, absolutely. So this piece is called, imaginatively, The Library. Bend pages at the corner, folding into the stories we tell about ourselves, about each other, about days dissolved and seasons yet to come. Circulate riches to every spirit and spine, stack rhyme, schemes, and prophecies, humanity and hypotheses. Guard our stories, stretching from soil to sky. Common and crowned, ground level to grand heights, all of our mass in the middle. Mass in the middle. The accumulated weight of all our question marks, our catalog of anxious cells and eager breaths. Warm the hallways, the portals, the platforms, ignite heart lights and hope against dim landscapes. Archive the shine of our collective living, our electric resistance to darkness. So as poet laureate, one of the favorite things I like to about the experience is explaining what a poet laureate is. So a poet laureate, in its shortest definition, is the ambassador of poetry. And each poet laureate is selected. Again, there's poet laureate selected for a city, poet laureate selected for a state, and we have a poet laureate for our nation. And each laureate is invited to create a platform using and leveraging poetry in the way that makes sense for their walk. And what makes the most sense for my walk, my life work, is where a writer and a performer and a poet has been less about convincing people that they're poets or that they like poetry. You are and you do. And more about engaging the poetry process, creative writing, imaginative thinking, and using that process to get people excited about how amazing they already are. And particularly as poet laureate, I wanted to use that same experience, my experience that I've witnessed, and create opportunities to put people in a conversation together who may not have otherwise fallen into conversation together. So from being in classrooms to doing strategic planning to coaching professional poets to coming up with ways of reflection for volunteers for race relation conversations and on and on and on. The process of imagining, and it falling to a poem on a piece of paper, there's a lot of thoughts, ideas, discussion, and decisions that happen from here to the page. And that process is also the same process to get us talking to each other. So I proposed a series called Poemalogues, and particularly when we had our shut-in, I did the Poemalogues from April through May, since we were all figuring out how to be in place. And I just wanted to offer a place on the digital square, in the digital screen, that was about conversation, that wasn't about debate, that wasn't particularly the terror at that time, with this new pandemic. And I'm excited that we're going to remount the series beginning in November. So I'll do from November to early January and again in the spring. And this will be going through my second year as your poet laureate. So the conversations have been really powerful, and the topics have been power, body, freedom, or place. And the invitation has been, what's the first image that comes to your mind when you hear the word body or when you hear the word power? And if that first image, for example, for body is somebody working out, then my instructions to go find a poem about working out. You see how easy that was? And if your first vision was a muscle, guess what? You are also now a poet. So those things happen pretty easily, but the dialogue have been really rich. So I invite you to subscribe to my channel. It sounds so weird to say. I know I'm getting used to living on your internet screens. But definitely you can reach out to my inbox through my website, dashakelly.com. Send me an email to make sure that you get notices about things going on and the dates. And if you are interested in possibly being in conversation with me, I would love to hear from you, most definitely. Another project I would like to share a piece from is there's a conversation. Well, there's always been a conversation. I'm in all these conversations, but the rural-urban flow. There's a flow network of creators and growers and organizers and residents between Milwaukee County and Sauk County. And we also have partnerships in 6 other cities across the country. And ultimately, it's what's the conversation that's happening and not happening at that county line. So yes, there's a discussion about food networks. And I remember being in one discussion going, I don't know anything about food. Oh, you're right, I do eat it. I don't grow anything. So I am a part of that discussion. And we often leave that discussion to the growers and the farmers and the people who have garden beds. All of us are in part of that dialogue. And there's more than just growing food. There's ideas and assumptions and stereotypes that one dweller has against the other. Y'all are nodding. You know what I'm talking about. So there's one of our partners is Worm Farm. And Worm Farm has an art detour every year. And with the detour, they have these incredible art installations that are installed on farmland. And people ride through the farmland engaging in these different kinds of public art. Well, of course, we're kind of in a pandemic, so things went digital. And rather than being on the farm, well, they did have some outdoor tours that happened, but a huge component of it was digital. And I was invited to create a poem that spoke to this discussion. So this is called Flow. Cement unwinds into countryside. Chatter about bad days and impossible dreams twitters between the trees, between satellites, between granola and grits, leche and lumpia, between homecomings and homegoings, one and all. Dusk consumes the sun. Dawn swallows the moon. Triumph and tragedy pinned along the horizon snap and fan in concert above the breeze. All above shades of pumpkin and construction cones, concrete, ash, espresso shots, and hay. Monarchs dance before skylines of seedling and steel, to the pulse of combines and shiny shoes, across landscapes rich with gorgeous and wild life, one and all. And in the season that we're in, it's really easy to get caught into us's and them's and theirs and those. And I know it's so much how this nation has been built and constructed, but it's on you, me, you, us, to deconstruct that approach, to decolonize the way we engage with each other. And there's so many levels and layers to that work and that conversation. I just invite you to stay in the work and the conversation. It's going to get messy. Remember that mess you made when you baked that pie, when you painted your room, when you gave birth, when you worked yourself through that relationship, when you got, beautiful things happen on the other side of mess. So attention and intention, we have to be there for it. So want to also share, ain't she cute? So this is the proof, so it still has loose pages in it, but I got the notice. See, the light is making that you can't see the design. There we go. So I got the notice that they've arrived. They are being shipped out. This book was this collection was created through a partnership with the John Michael Kohler Art Center. I'm doing a return residency with them. So all month I've been working with a class, and each week I'm taking them through different writing prompts and instruction, getting them prepared to create their own little tiny stories. And they will be the first to receive copies. And so I'm really excited that not only were we able to make this happen, I've had a lot of people ask about these Dashnets. Can you put them, are you gonna, when were you? The universe said yes. So as a backtrack for folks who aren't familiar, my Dashnets are little snippets that I started writing about 5 years ago. And it was at a time when I wasn't able to write the way that I wanted to. I didn't have the time. I was busy trying to, you know the deal. And my compromise to myself and not being able to have the full writer time that I wanted to, but I didn't want to go another stretch of time without writing anything. So what I offered to myself was just to create these little stories. And then I also gave myself permission to send them out. Now that may sound odd, as much as I've been a public person and performing and traveling all about with my work. I'm also very mindful of people's space and their private time. And to a fault, I have friends that still fuss at me. Tell me why you didn't tell me about this, that, and the other. I'm like, well, I didn't want you to feel like you had to. My friends are still working on me. They're still working on me. So I had this similar attitude about bugging people, right, with my work, and bundled into that, I also wanted to have an experience that was a little more intimate than social media, that was a bit more personal than what I may post about, you know, what I was doing in the course of a day. So these are little vignettes of my life and memories, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to email everybody. Everybody in my inbox, everybody in my email address book is getting one. If they don't want it, they can unsubscribe. I know I get things in my inbox that I don't want. What do? I unsubscribe or I don't open them. So I gave myself that little bit of permission, and the response over these years has been heartwarming. Commonly, people will say, oh my goodness, this was a little burst of breath of fresh air inside my inbox of other things that are not always easy, light, or take less than a minute to read. And in the platform, people are able to respond when they receive them in their emails. And then when they respond with little stories about, oh, this makes me think of, oh, I too used to, oh, I've never forgot how. So we are all connected in our memories and our experiences too. Even if there's something that I've experienced that you haven't, hopefully in the way I've written it, it'll light something in your chest, an emotion that will take you to a place all of your very own. So what I want to do is share a couple of Dashnets with you. Batter. Tucked into our pockets of couch, deliberate in our sprawl, our intention of stopping. Homework clipped into binders, dustpans stored. At 13, I watched my parents' movies and read my mother's books. I understood enough not to miss what flew over my head. Mama chortles at the screen. What? What? I asked. Pancake batter does get hard if you leave it. You do need a sandblaster. I held my gaze on her profile and an absurd envy of everything she knew. That even a smart kid wouldn't snare all of the smart adult jokes. That I'd have to wait, grow up, make pancakes. Bag. Symphony of a home, a shudder of a loose pane, the bend and moan of heat through the radiators, our steel door closing, deadbolts sliding, and Daddy sealing himself from the day. Padding pulse of military boots in the hall, retail plastic crinkles, keys clink on the dining room table where I'm studying. Finished, actually, now that I see the bag beside Daddy's keys. He rented 3 movies at a time back then. One we all watched, the others recorded overnight, a distant purring of machinery. I giggled at the piracy warning once, complicit from our couch. He grinned, shrugged, and hit record. When I sent that particular one out, I sent a copy to my father, and Daddy was like, "Great. Now I gotta call my attorney because my firstborn out here snitching. Gotta check on the statute of limitations." Yes, these are the people from whom I come. I'm quite honored. I'll share one more. Undersides. Shay waits patiently at the edges of my imagination. We found each other a few years ago and have been stoking our mutual interest along the way. We arranged to steal away one Sunday morning to the upstairs writing chair. She was to show me all of the memories gnawing at her undersides. Mission met me instead. New character, new story. I found her collapsed against a wall, watching the curtain shears breathe. She was hiding from death, or maybe celebrating it. I'll know once we figure out who the dead boy, man, turns out to be. Along my periphery, Shay sits with her long legs crossed. She's deciding, hopefully, how to tell me her everything. So my first love is fiction. I've been writing stories since I was a little person, and I didn't realize until I knew that people didn't like to write. I didn't realize that that writing was painful for folks until I got to college, and I was a tutor for other college athletes. I played volleyball. I was a tutor for other college athletes, and then I got moved into the tutoring center, and I became the paper girl. And explaining to people how what they wrote and what they were thinking, how they weren't the same, was my first writerly experience. So along the way, I've always gone, I discovered poetry, or rather was introduced to poetry through spoken word as a grown-up, and then was able to backtrack the things that I scribbled and say, oh, this counts as a poem? This counts as a poem? It turns out, y'all, I'm a poet. So I am all the way around a writer, and definitely go back to fiction as often as I can. So Shay is a character that I've been, like the little clips that I've been thinking about and getting to know for quite a while. And I'm looking for here we go. My computer doesn't want to behave right now. And if I do a resetty thing, I'm going to lose you all. We can't have that. Okay. I'm back. I don't know if I was gone, but I felt like I was gone. So I was talking about Shay, and what I'm going to do is, as my computer cooperates here, I had everything pulled up. Loosely, and I wanted the story itself started, interestingly enough, as a screenplay. I have a friend of mine from high school, shout out to Freddie Gutierrez, who works in the film industry, and here we go. And so I was English, gather myself. I was flustered by this digital business, but I'm back. So my friend Freddie, who works in the business, we were talking one day, and he says, "Hey, I was DJ in high school. DJ, have you ever thought about writing screenplays?" And no, screenplays and plays, and that's a whole different deal. My lane is wide enough, and I'm gonna stick here. And plus, it's a whole formatting thing. He was like, "You can find a program to format it. A story is a story is a story." Challenge accepted. So I had a residency coming up not too far after that conversation. So I had a week, and I taught in the morning, and I had all of this beach view in the afternoon. So I gave myself the challenge of writing of a movie script. And the story is called Baker's Dozen. And I've now fallen in love with this character, and she has stayed with me. So now I want to novelize. I've decided that's a word, and give background and some backstory and give a little bit more detail to the story. And it's limited because with the film, it's dialogue and pictures. You've seen a movie before. So I'm excited how this has come together. I'm probably halfway through the pulling it all together as a novel. So I'm going to introduce you to Shay. When you were a kid, before you understood what your body was trying to process beneath its skin, your imagination would race ahead to limbs like gnarled tree roots and wheelchairs and telethons, like the ones you watch with Lady every year. She would hum and hallelujah at the donations and praise the Lord at the Kohler stories. You liked watching the performances and interviews and being around Lady on the days she wore her satin slippers. Satin slipper days would involve deep conditioners and face masks, stacks of magazines, catalogs, or an Angela Bassett DVD marathon. Satin slipper days would always include the whole pill. On regular days, Lady would have the oval pills with the straight razor in her bathroom vanity. You'd seen how half of the pill could soften her shoulders and lessen the cinch of a reprimand by the time she drained her glass of water. On satin slipper days, Lady floated herself an island, away from luncheons and conventions, salon appointments and spanks, the sanctified and the sycophants. She would hum bouncy tunes and roll and stroll to the kitchen for more tea. You can still hear the whisk of her slippers across the kitchen tile. When you were small and new, you learned to puzzle and color in a room corner, keeping Lady in your sights and yourself just outside of her periphery. She'd forgotten you were in the house once, still adjusting to your permanence. You'd edged into the hallway after a nap, and Lady startled, dropping her mug of tea. In those first weeks, after you were scooped from the church balcony, you nestled regularly in Lady's lap. As you'd climb down, Lady would inspect herself for wrinkles or crumbs, and then tap the tip of your nose with her slim finger. You didn't make Lady happy, the way you could feel your mama's joy when she looked at you. But you could tell Lady wanted to hold you more than she wanted to dress for tea, speak at a luncheon, or hold court for the incessant griping and gossip of church leadership and members. Mama's lap had always been soft, always warm, always open for you. Even if she was busy drawing circles around newspaper ads or scrolling her numbers to make another call about a place to stay, you had a cozy pocket in her plush of her center. You didn't have to be still or careful in Mama's lap, but you did have to be quiet. It was a sweet spot for her sweet spot, she would say. You'd nap against her chest with your small limbs wrapped around her torso while she wrote lists on a yellow notepad. You'd lay your head in her lap as she talked in her phone voice about jobs she never had, transportation she couldn't afford, and a mailing address that actually belonged to a bookstore cafe. You'd been afraid of the manager at first, the steep slope of her shoulders, the cool of her steel blue eyes. Mama told you how mean people can wear nice smiles, and sometimes a nice person can have a mean-looking face. The cafe manager would open on snowy mornings without hugs or sugary words and let you both stay as long as you needed. She brought you hot chocolate without having to ask and said your name when she said goodbye. You remember being afraid of Lady in those early days. You weren't afraid of being left with Lady, not at first. Mama left you before while she was out making some luck. The two of you were in luck if she found a shelter bed, out of luck if the pantry shelf only had canned beans, or pushing your luck if Mama asked for one more dollar or to be dropped off another 4 blocks away. Mama could make all kinds of luck for the two of you, especially on dark and messy days when it didn't feel like there was any luck left in the world. You and Lady recessed from the world. Neither of you were on display on satin slipper days. You both wore soft clothes and had your hair in a ponytail. So I'm excited to get to know Shay a bit more and all of the folks that are in her orbit. I expect everything crossed to keep on this track and have this initial manuscript done by Christmas. Seems really ambitious. Let's be ambitious. I said it out loud, so what that means I gotta keep my own feet to this fire. So I'm looking at the time. Oh, actually I have time for a couple more pieces. I want to read another quick Dashnet, and then we're gonna take time for some of your questions. So as I've described this collection, it's a memoir of moments. And I like to remind people that when we think about telling our story, we want to go to the big, enormous benchmark events. And yes, that is absolutely part of your story. But many of these smaller moments deserve words too, because they are also part of your story. So this is Slick. The lunchroom vibrated its regular din. I was a freshman, goofy, but played sports. Honors classes, but knew the lyrics to Run DMC. Okay, most of them. And some dance moves. He was a senior with more work hours than classes, pressed slacks with dress shoes, and all of the dance moves. I'd witnessed his pop lot devour boys from K-Town. Sniffling, I balanced my lunch tray, waiting. He emerged in an apron, hairnet, maroon shoes gleaming. As planned, I lowered my tray, met his eyes. Unplanned, the slick escaping my right nostril. Fleeing became my new dance move. So I just want to let you know I figured it out. I got it together. Shout out to my husband, Kima Hamilton, who's working the controls behind the scenes. So no more running, no more fleeing, and he doesn't care if I have a snotty nose. It works out just fine. Flesh. Her loose leaf weighed heavy with penmanship. She wasn't nervous, just exposing nerve. We're at the end of my name writing workshop, one of my favorites. Look at me now, she read aloud. I had been. Throughout the session, my eyes had been climbing the scarred scaffolding on her forearm, red slices into her skin, ancient and fresh. My name means star in the sky, she continued. But look at me now. She mocked the ambition of her name, owned her own tumble from the heavens. She has negotiated a definition of herself in pounds of tender flesh. Indeed, we are looking. She still refracts starlight. And motor. The classroom is warm. He rises to silence the window fan. The men protest. He quiets the room with a look. He points to the fan motor, to his nearby seat, to his ear. Grumbles subside. He slides into his seat, always in the back, after all these years with the balance of his life to go. He wears his wisdom all the time now, and eyeglasses. Inside these walls, between sheets of lined paper, he has seasoned from participant to leader, poet to proctor, from steeping to being. A breeze fills the room. His smile is slight. Mine is broad. The lesson goes on. Of all of the outreach that I have an opportunity to do, my work in my work in prisons is my favorite. So yes, I love the babies. Yes, I love strategic planning. Yes, I love creative placemaking. Yes, I love organizing creative souls and solutions, but going into prisons and working with folks who are residents of these institutions fills me in a different way because they need it in a different way. So I've been going to prison programs for over 15 years now. And there's been a range of different initiatives and projects that we've done, and excited about looking forward at ways to build a bridge experience. So as I call them, my fellas, and I don't know how it is, but anyway, my fellas as they come home, having things in place where they are able to start and proctor and lead and build community through these open mics, through these workshops, through the work and the relationships we've been able to build by me going into their space, giving them the tools to create those same experiences for all the places that they will get out and move on and call home. So I want to share in terms of a bit of news and finger crossing. I am being considered for the state poet laureate. I know. And if that comes together, what I would want to do is activate a project of working through poetry, creating like a pen pal project exchange between poets who reside outside of institutions and the poets who reside inside institutions across the state. And even that doesn't happen, we can still make that a thing. So again, you have all of my information. Hit me up. Let me know if you're interested in learning more, volunteering, making it happen. I've learned, if nothing else, that we are all in this together, and I definitely welcome more scribe soldiers on the team. So I am going to, I think I have time to share 2 more pieces, and then we'll go to questions. Yes, sound good? I'm pretending like I can see you. That's how the world works now. So this poem that I'm going to share is not new, and by new, the things I've written that I've shared are new are things I've written like in the last 6 months. So this is not anything that I've written in the last 6 months, but it is something that I welcome the opportunity to share in public, and I don't get a chance to share it very often. And it's a discussion that I want us to have more often. The title should say it all. The title is Baby Mama Shit. Let that sink in. Baby mama shit. Systems clench themselves around the flesh of tender fathers. Good men trying to stand up after laying down with a hurricane woman. Howls of her loneliness rattle village windows. Her bitter winds peeling back with the rooftops and splintering the new furniture over and again. Over and again. Systems grind themselves through the bones of steadfast fathers. Noble men with prayers for strength etched into their tongues, standing in the eye of an unrelenting storm. She is torrential. The systems are built to save her, even when she is the spiraling danger, never calm, always storm. She stirs the ocean without warning. Good men forced to validate their value in the eyes of an unseeing system, feeding itself with the hopes of humbled fathers. Guilty until proven forgiven. Punished until her raging might diminish into harsh rains. She plucks at his wounds and gobbles their seeds. She floods the horizon with selfish fury, blocking their children from his light. Good men drenched in the indelible ink of docket numbers and case files. The system wails its warning. The siren wails her pain. Even our good men are drowning. And And this last piece is for all of you creatives out there, and I think we established that's everybody, and particularly for creatives who also identify themselves as artists. The fathers have been wrong. Neither wits nor years have been wasted. Loosely spent, perhaps, scattered and prayed over. Rejoice, the harvest. Turns out, the mothers were right about rainy days, though, about positioning barrels under the sky, about dreams plummeting and evaporating. Curse the drought. Never mind the second cousins, supervisors, in-laws, pew-mates, classmates, and the warm-hearted ex, unconvinced and unimpressed, ever concerned under the breath. Condescension is a learned language, ill-fitted for the expanse of their genuine affections. Cherish the village. Gather the creatives. Muscles taut from bending humanity into open windows and carpet rides. Harness our wattage of will, carrying narratives from the perimeter to conversation centers. We vibrate with imagination, with abandon, reverence, and arduous hope. Honor our breath. All right. So I'm excited to hear the questions that you might have, and you are invited to put them in the chat thread. And if you would like to actually be on screen and talk to me, you can follow the link. It says follow the link, and that will enter you into our studio green room, as it were. So that's our digital studio door. You can chat with me in either direction, put a question in the thread, or join me on the screen. It is a learned language. So we think about of the folks that I know who are creatives and the relatives that don't get it, don't understand you, and in a way they don't. And it's not that they don't want to, but they just don't. And it can produce tension and condescension, because in their minds, why don't you get a real job? Or I'm sorry, I am sending out invoices and checks are coming in and the lights are on, so that's happening. What I need is ... So we all walk different roads, and I'm often surprised at people who want to do math and teach middle school on purpose. So we all have a different journey, right? Yes, Miss Vonda. So, oh my goodness, I cannot wait to do a whole conversation about Northland Rec Lab. Because of Northland Rec Lab, I have a soothing tool of learning how to make polymer clay pens. And it's something that I break out. In fact, I have a polymer clay day set aside for myself over the course of the weekend. And it takes my mind off of the moment. I maybe put in an audio book, or I'll put in a movie, or I'll just sit and listen to music and just crank out these pens. And then I give them away. So one thing I told my husband, he was there at the Northland Rec Lab with me. I said, baby, as soon as I start talking about making pens and setting up a table at a craft, shut it down. This is just for my relaxation. You know how I get. Do not let me start turning this into an enterprise. I was raised by my dad and his mother, not by... Mothers automatically got the children when divorce occurred. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of our laws, as we know, are rooted in history, and there's a foundation for that, and the conversation has not evolved as we have evolved. Miss Charlotte, at that same time, I'm sure there weren't a lot of dads out there who were changing diapers either, right? So we have brothers who are carrying the papoose on the front, and they're up for feeding, and they want to be engaged. And the statistics show, particularly, that men are involved in their children's lives, and we have a baseline of that deadbeat dad. And yes, that's a whole conversation. We all have a somebody in our personal network who's not showing up for his children as he should. We also know some she's who aren't showing up for her children as she would and can, and that we haven't So we're going to set them over here. The same way the discussion about violence and domestic violence automatically presumes that it's the worst case scenario, when sometimes it's a really bad toxic relationship and a bad argument that got loud, and automatically he's the one that's going to jail, even if she started it and she hit. We know that. But yes, Miss Charlotte, the system that we have now is biased in many conversations, in necessary ways for mothers. But the same way our Constitution doesn't acknowledge women or people of color, it can stand to be revisited in a new, enlightened conversation. Oh my goodness. A book of poetry, you cannot go wrong with Patricia Smith. The collection that she wrote, Blood Dazzler, started with a piece about Hurricane Katrina, and the pieces that she has in there are brilliant. She's brilliant, so she's great with persona pieces, and she uses that as an avenue to have these rich and layered conversations. I would also recommend Claudia Rankine's book. I know it's not called. I'm looking right at it. It's white. It's got the cover. Get all of her, but Citizen. Again, it gives a mix of different types of poetry. You know, for me personally, to see that poems in a paragraph are also poems. Where if you come into poetry as a novice, to your point, you come into it with all of the form instructions that we're given in high school. We're also introduced to a particular way that a voice can sound on the page. So the third book that I would recommend would be the Breakbeat Poets, and that's a really thick collection of contemporary poets, and within that you're going to find some standard pantoons, you're going to find some free-flowing prose pieces, and they're going to range in tone, they're going to range in vernacular, they're going to range in perspectives. So I would definitely recommend those are places to start. And I know one thing that got me into poetry was listening to spoken word. So if you invite especially if they're young people, have them go to Brave New Voices. Just put that in your Google search, your YouTube search, and just the videos that will present, and something about young people hearing poems that they may not have known counted as poems, seeing people that look like them, their age, in a lot of cases wrapped in their same kind of skin, wearing backpacks, listening to the same music, or not, is inspiring. Because I know for me, that's what's returned me to poems on the page. My introduction as a kid, similarly, was, why are we listening to these dead white men and these riddles? It was a challenge. So exposing them to different ways that poems are put together for any age, I think would be a great place to start. So start with your videos and check out those collections. Would you use a dictation tool to assist in writing a book? That's a great question. I think using a dictation tool would be more for we're gathering your ideas. So after a while, especially for fiction, these characters live in your head. So my husband, bless his heart, I talk about Shay as if she lived next door, and I love him so. And he'll ask about Shay as if he has seen her in the flesh. So to that end, you'll have these ideas. You're thinking about, this could happen, or I need to remember that, or maybe these developments. And so dictating those scenes of what you want to piece together. And you can then add that when you're sitting down and actually doing the writing. I know that the process of thinking about a story, of thinking about language, is different than what happens to your brain when you, yes, that's for you, Mario, when it goes from your ideas to page. So I don't know that I would use it as a process to write the book, but I would definitely think it would be a great tool to help you capture your ideas and kind of get a ramble going, knowing that you're going to have to take it apart and put it back together again anyway. Ben Salon, you could smoke in a bar, have to stick and listen to Dasha. Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Mario. I hope you're smoking wherever you are, unless, of course, you're out in a bar, because we don't do that anymore. Does anyone want to join me on screen? No brave souls? No brave souls? Any other questions? I'm mindful of the time. Some of you are on a late lunch break or you're on an errand from work. Don't worry, your secret is safe with me. And I hope that you will subscribe to the Dashnets. And again, there's something that I send out via email. It feels really personal. You can talk back to me. I do them only once a week, and you know all of the disclaimers. I'm not telling the list. You're not going to get a bunch of advertisements. It's just me sharing my little narratives, and I hope that you're inspired to scribble yours too. I'm trying to think. We'll just do another one of these another day. So I'll wait till though I have confirmation, but I have some cool things that are brewing. The last thing I'll not leave you with, but I want to share about what I am working on is I've talked a lot about creatives and being creative, as well as writing and performing and teaching workshops. I'm huge, on a huge soapbox, literally on a huge soapbox, and engaging creatives in our matters of government, our matters of community, our opportunities to build and heal. So my mission is human and social wellness, and engaging creatives in that endeavor, more than having us show up to read at your thing, more than contracting us to do a mural on the side of that thing, more than the performative part of being creative. Our brains are pretty spectacular, and we are also solving problems. We are also strategic planners. We also are residents and citizens and have a lot of great ideas and have a lot to offer. And often we are brought to the table way too late. Often creatives are invited to the table after a lot of decisions are made, and we're brought in to make things pretty. And we do that. But I invite you to consider inviting a choreographer to your next strategic planning meeting. I invite you to invite a baker or a graphic designer into your next brainstorming session. Just the way that they hear information and share it back with you, you're going to be reminded that it's a different kind of genius that we all have. Just some of us have chosen to live on that side of our brain and not just visit from time to time. So those are the things and projects that you'll see popping up for me. In addition to new poems, I've got another year of conversation and scribbling, and I'm really pleased to be able to share this time and share some new stuff. And even though we're not hugging in person, I'm receiving this as a huge community hug. So I'm glad that you had a chance to be in this space. Thank you to John Michael Kohler Art Center for inviting me back for this experience. So I first did my residency at Kohler. There, working with Kohler is how I commissioned Making Cake. And Making Cake is a stage production that I will be touring next year. What? Well, not next year because pandemic, but this next year moving forward. So the show is actually picked up by Siegel Arts Management. And if you are across the country and have a theater or a conference, this show is what you want. So it's telling the story of race, class, and equity in America by telling the story of cake. And there are two bakers on stage baking a cake live. I'm telling stories. There's media and video going on. And at the end, we have cake and talk about what you learned. So and the short through line is basically we've always had cake, but cake has not been possible for a lot of our human history because it was really time intensive. And when it was possible for everyone to make cake, everyone couldn't make cake because the ingredients were expensive. Or, hey, class and income inequality, how you doing? Hey, racism, how you doing? Hey, yes. So all of those narratives are woven into a conversation, a sweet, sweet dialogue about cake. So I'm glad to be back with the Kohler Arts Center, and was excited to pull Life in Short together, and that this book became an outcome that we were able to share publicly and not just with the attendees of the series. So it's 4:00. Some of y'all gotta go. I'm gonna read one poem as you sign off. And this is the piece that is downtown. So Della Wells, the inimitable Della Wells, put her in your life if you don't already know her artwork. We have a exhibit that's downtown. It's on 56 banners, 10 blocks of downtown, and the project is The Road of Democracy. And this is a poem that is paired with her artwork. And there's a little movie that's coming out. We're doing the things, y'all. We're doing the things. The road of democracy layers mud, gravel, liberation, and tar. Long legacies flattened into foundation, speckled with quartz, conflict, sweat and sand, limestone and gall. The road of democracy glistens back at the sun, hums lowly beneath the stars. Paupers, barons, newly born and nearly departed, impress spiked, squared, and bare heels, fleeing from, journeying forward. No pound or purpose shrugged aside. The road of democracy absorbs brutal storms, frost, heat, buckles and splits open, shimmers skyward in vapors. Reinforce, reroute, repair. Millions yet to march this old road, hoisting new signs, new directions and limits, clearer navigation, wider view. The road of democracy interrupts tree lines, shorelines, skylines, shoulders, canyons, glens, banks, and caves, bends passage and promise into every horizon. Thank you, family. Thank you, family. That's what I've got. That's what I've got. That's what I've got. So you see my socials there. Feel free to hit me up, reach out, follow me. Not follow me, but social media talk. And I encourage you to know that your day is going to get better. Every heartbeat, and every breath. Your day is already great. Heartbeats and breath. And I'm glad that we were able to have this intersection together. Have an incredible, incredible day.
Experiences and events and issues a perspective that is absent from usual political speech.
I'm Raisha, or Rai. I'm an organizer by trade, I guess, sometimey artist, DJ, spoken word poet, singer. And I'm here because I love a good demonstration.
Do not tell me a bedtime story about the FBI pulling jurisdiction or a carefully signed search warrant.
And at least it's enough for hope. At least it's enough for drill. At least enough to moisturize them.
I wonder what actions will be employed to make our sisters seem like target practices. I wonder if they will execute.
For Leah to play her small violin, I hope I hope to open my refrigerator to yellow, orange, and green peppers.
Any meaningful way to say care, lest we say it's in the Bible and cry about the tombs we never built, with the bricks we never asked for and the soil we rocked to rot. Soil we say in name alone, soil as property, soil as a means of alienation that has been ascribed to more.
Every lie in this space into a ball and throw it out. I need us all to be born again. Every soul, each wish, every whisper to stand in accord. See,
This for a reason. Somebody needs to hear this.
The last one I'm going to share is what was included in the invitation. I'd just like to layer my voice on it so when you pin it to your wall and tell people where you were today, you can hear me saying it to you. Life in motion. I see you trying to snip yourself free from the clash of fabric patterns outside the outline of your fierce and stunning soul. Coast be not ocean, edge be not your end. I smell the salt water in your conversation, a slow leak of truth from the corners of your grin. I see you, fumbling to wrap yourself in the wind, but I know a costume when I see one. You carve your journey through fire, blaze ash compacted in your chest, footsteps forged into scorched earth, rising like breaths of sage. Glancing backwards will still be an inclination. Forward is your instinct. I see you, hobbling together a truth of your own, reconsidering the broken pieces, polishing the gemstone in your scars. You are incomplete and you are the universe. You are an evolution. Evolution. You are. Thank you.